So 9 or 10 years ago when I was starting my ketogenic journey, there was a couple year period of time where I was still in a corporate business setting, okay? So very black tie environment where I needed to abide by a corporate structure and go to client dinners and travel and wine and dine clients and things like that, all while still trying to practice the ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. So my point is, I learned some things. I learned some tricks, I learned some shortcuts, and I learned some hacks. But then as my career's gone on, I've obviously learned different ways to hack it even more and be able to get by in a business setting. So I want to share these things with you. Now this is going to be a pretty comprehensive guide, but it's not going to be like a full detailed meal plan. If you're new to the ketogenic diet, I have other videos that lay that out and I'll put them all down below in the description. But I still think you should watch this video in its entirety because it's probably going to help you out, at least conceptually. Hey, I do want to make sure you hit that red subscribe button and then hit that little bell icon so you can always turn on notifications and always know whenever I'm going live or posting a new video. Okay, the first thing I need to instill upon you all is the confidence to be able to make those decisions in a business setting that are still going to be better for your health. And I know that sounds funny, but it's true. Okay, it's difficult to go to a client dinner and order something that is ketogenic without those around you judging you or making a weird comment. I know it's tough. The point is that those people, although they may make a comment on the surface, deep down, they're going to trust your discipline and your decision making a lot more because you are sticking to something. So even if it doesn't show and manifest just right then and there, when it comes down to brass tacks and trusting you in business, I think they will have a vote of confidence knowing that you have discipline. So just before I get started in anything tactical, just know that. Now I will say, generally it's easier to fast through a dinner than it is to try to make healthy options or healthy choices. And that's simply because it's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm not hungry, and just not eat, than it is to explain why you're eating a certain way. Because people always like to judge and always like to poke holes. And I know in an ideal world, we would hope that they wouldn't, but they do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about client dinners. Here's a couple strategies and things that I learned along the way. If you are doing a ketogenic diet, try working out directly before the client dinner. Of course, give yourself time to shower. You don't want to show up sweaty and gross, but the point is, work out before you go to the dinner. And this is for good reason. Here's what happens. When you work out, your muscles become much more receptive to glucose. Okay? So what that means is that if you slip up when you're out to dinner, or if you accidentally get carb bombed, right? Like some of these sweet sauces and things like that that'll go on your salmon, they might have some extra carbs in them. Well, you're gonna have a little bit more leeway. And it's simple. What happens is the muscle cells are going to soak up the glucose rather than the liver. If the liver were to soak up that glucose, it would potentially kick you out of keto, which would mess up your brain function, which would make you not feel as good, which would hinder your business decisions, things like that. So you just gotta be careful with that. So if you work out first, that extra glucose gets soaked up in the muscles versus soaked up in the liver. It doesn't mean that you can eat a bunch of bread, but still. Another thing that I usually recommend is if you're around people that you know, don't be afraid to bring your own dressing. Okay, now that sounds weird because you'd be bringing a little Tupperware. That's why I said if it's with people that you know. Otherwise, here's a little hack that I've learned. Almost every single restaurant has olive oil. So if you get a salad or you get some veggies or anything like that, ask for a side of olive oil and order a side of avocado. Put the olive oil on the salad or whatever, put the avocado on the salad and mash it together and make a little dressing with avocado and olive oil. It tastes really good once you put a little bit of salt and pepper on it, and no one's gonna ever bat an eye at that. They're probably just thinking you're making a somewhat healthy option. They're not thinking that you're just being a total strange person ordering these things. So that's just a quick tip that I've learned. Another quick tip that's made a big difference for me is before I go to any kind of dinner function or anything like that, I'll usually have a protein shake before I go into dinner. Why do I do this? Well, two reasons. One, it's going to satiate me, so I make a better decision. Okay, so I already have eaten something. I'm not going into a restaurant looking at a menu saying, okay, I want this, 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 this. It's amazing what a little protein shake will do. But also, when you have a protein shake, it absorbs really quick. So it spikes your insulin up. Now, this is not good overall, but in the short term, it's very good because glucose will be in your bloodstream. And when you spike your insulin, it's gonna allow that glucose to go into the cells, which means your blood sugar is gonna balance out and level off before you go into the restaurant. Okay, it's the big rise and fall of blood sugar that's gonna make you crave things and make you hungry. So I've just found that this makes a big difference for me. Okay, now I need to jump over to lunches for a minute. Now I'm not talking about client lunches, I'm talking about day in and day out, making the right decisions. When it comes to prep your meats. That's all you need to prep. Okay, you don't need to be making a bunch of meals. You don't need to be doing this. If you cook up a bunch of like grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef or some ground turkey or something like that, cook up a lot of that and then separate that into some containers, and that's all you need to bring with you when you go to work. Then you just need to add avocados, or you need to add some oils, you add some salad, or you can eat the good quality meat and then go out to eat and just have a salad and don't worry about getting the low quality meats, because that's the hard part, is most restaurant meat is very, very, very low quality. And especially in a business setting, when you're trying to maintain optimal cognitive function, I am a stickler when it comes to the kind of meat that I consume, because I'm always trying to get the right omega-3 ratio. We have to remember, 30% of the fats in our brain are omega-3s. We need to be getting those omega-3s if we want our brain to be functioning better and modulate inflammation within our brain. Most of the meats that we consume, especially in a business setting out to eat, are omega-6 meats that are cooked in canola oil. So guess what? We trigger a myriad of different inflammatory reactions and cascades within our body that we may not think affect us until we're 70 or 80 years old, but no, they're affecting you right now. So make those decisions a little bit easier by prepping the meat out ahead of time. Another thing that I've done in the past is if I'm traveling and I know that I won't be able to get my hands on really good meat, I will literally ship meat to myself. I will literally do that. And maybe I'll ship it to myself frozen and stay at like a Homewood Suites or an extended stay or something like that and cook up a little bit of good quality beef. That's an easy way to do it. For those of you that are trying to save some time and that are interested, I did put a link down below for ButcherBox. ButcherBox is who I use whenever I need to, sounds funny, but mail meat to myself, but also just a home delivery service for grass-fed, grass-finished meat, so you're getting that good omega-3 profile. It's a special link down below, and anyone that uses that link that's watching this video will save some money, but also get some extra bonuses that come along with that, just all for my audience and for my fans and stuff like that. So special link down below for ButcherBox, grass-fed, grass-finished meat. Great for anybody, but definitely great if you're busy, because it saves you the trip to the grocery store and you can get whatever cuts of meat that you want, all in the profiles that you need. On that same note of being prepared, keep a stash in your car and keep a stash in your actual office of any kinds of snacks or additions to meals, right? So what I usually do is I'll usually keep macadamia nuts, I'll usually keep like some beef sticks of some kind, I'll usually keep sardines, I'll usually keep a can of tuna, I'll usually keep olive oil and coconut oil too, and I just have a little stash for that, and it makes life really easy, because you can go and you can have your keto coffee and have a full meal replacement there. So I can come into the office, I can have a cup of coffee, I can take 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and boom, I've got a couple hundred calories there. That is a sufficient breakfast that's gonna keep me satiated all the way to lunch, so I'm not making those bad snacking decisions throughout the day or putting the sugar-filled creamer in. So just being prepared, no one is going to question or think that you're odd if you put coconut oil in your coffee. It's mainstream enough now that I think you're good to go. Okay, the big one when you're out to eat that people are always talking about is alcohol. I have good news for you. Alcohol more than likely will not kick you out of ketosis. Alcohol is its own macronutrient. It is not a carbohydrate. Beer, on the other hand, yeah, beer can kick you out. Wine can kick you out to some degree, but distilled vodka, gin, things like that, those are gonna be good to go, simply because they are not a carbohydrate. They are an alcohol, which converts into what's called acetaldehyde in the body, which does take preferential digestion and metabolism over anything else. I'll explain that in a second, but they're still not a carbohydrate. So some people will say that alcohol will kick you out of keto. No, what it does is it temporarily stops the production of ketones, because the liver prioritizes the metabolism of that alcohol. Remember, acetaldehyde, which is what alcohol gets broken down to, is a toxin. It is a poison, and it should be avoided, to be completely honest, for general health. But the liver will process it at the highest priority because it's a poison and it wants to get it out, which means that any ketone metabolism or any other digestion that's occurring at the liver level has to take a back seat to that. So we have to remember that. So just be aware of that. Now note, if you are fasting at a dinner function, try not to drink. Only drink if you're actually going to eat, because you're stopping the benefits of the fast. You absolutely are. That hepatic autophagy, where the cells within the liver are recycling their own used components or unused components, I should say, that stops because, again, the alcohol has to get metabolized. So the liver's like, oh, I got to stop recycling and I got to get to work. Okay, so just word to the wise there. Now the big one, okay, big takeaway from this video, okay? We're talking about travel and how to time your fasting properly. Now I have some new cutting edge science for you here that's really cool. Now, don't take this the wrong way. If you practice intermittent fasting already and you have a way that works for you, keep on it. I'm not trying to get anyone to change their ways, but there is some recent science that shows that if you eat a large amount in the evening time, you have a higher chance of it, A, getting stored, but B, spiking your blood sugar and causing some negative health effects and contributing to metabolic disorders. The reason is because it's been found that we have melatonin receptors on our pancreas. So melatonin is a hormone that's released when we are going to bed, or when it's dark out, or when we're starting to get into our natural circadian rhythm of when it's time to wind down. Melatonin will bind to these receptors in the pancreas, and that triggers the pancreas to not produce as much insulin, which means that when you consume food, the insulin isn't there to let it get into storage properly. It's not there to allow those carbohydrates to get digested and get utilized because insulin's just not functioning at that point in time, or at least not as well. So this implies that we should be eating larger breakfasts and then weaning off food as we go throughout the day, which means if you're fasting and you're traveling, you may want to consider, and this is somewhat new, fasting from morning to morning. It's just something to consider. So eat a larger breakfast, and then fast all day, and then eat again the next morning on a travel day. However, we have to look at the different kinds of travel because our body does link up with the circadian rhythm, and it does absolutely matter with our gut biome and things like that. So for example, if you're traveling from west to east, let me give you an example, California to New York, you may want to consider fasting that day, okay? Here's why. If you land in New York at 6 p.m., as far as your body's clock is concerned, it's only 3 p.m. So it's really earlier than you actually think. So you'd be safer breaking your fast in the evening, traveling from west to east, because when you do have that larger bolus of food, it's technically not that late, and you probably don't have the melatonin levels coming in to suppress insulin. Okay, so if that makes sense, traveling from west to east, California to New York, you should go ahead and plan on fasting and break your fast after you land. Now, on the contrary, traveling from east to west, you might want to consider eating before you fly, before you get on the plane, and then fasting throughout the day and not eating until the next morning. So if it's 6 p.m. in New York and you're traveling to California and it's only 3 p.m., well, you may not eat your dinner until 5 or 6 p.m. California time, which is going to be 8 or 9 p.m. New York time. So it's going to be much later as far as your body clock is concerned. Okay, so the point is that if you were to fast till the end of the day, then you'd be taking in a bunch of food when your melatonin levels are high and your insulin levels aren't going to be working. So you're better off to eat in the morning and fast morning to morning. So just to paraphrase really quick, west to east, fast until evening. Okay? East to west, fast morning to morning. This will make a big difference, and it will help your cognitive function because your circadian rhythm and your gut biome is going to be able to be jiving with each other the way that they should. Now, I will say, if you need any more detail on the ketogenic diet and quick tips and everything like that, I've put comprehensive guides down below, the different videos that I've done, and that way you can see it all and you can really absorb the material that you need to absorb to do this right. So as always, please keep it locked in here on my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.